Wrong knocking. I still remember the horrifying night of that day. The day when I saw something I shouldn't have seen. The night that haunted me for several days, that woman who engraved that one moment in my mind which I vividly remember even today, and it gives me the chills running down my spine as my heart pounds heavily and my chest all shaken from every corner as I write everything down because of her terrifying words of unknown goodbyes as if I'm being watched. In those days, we lived in our homeland in the home of one of our relatives, but that house was known to have something going on, paranormal activities. We didn't know about that before our life took an opposite turn. My siblings would every other day be woken by this unknown presence who'd play with them from time to time, shaking them with fear. We were very young by that time, becoming the target of this game of horror. I was just a 5-year-old child. One night, after Mom put me to sleep leaving the room for a while, I woke up. The lights were off, and the night was still long. As my eyes wandered the room, they caught sight of the fan attached to the loft rotating and taking countless strolls in circles, dizzying me as I looked at it, all lost in the forest of thoughts. It was as if I was being hypnotized. Suddenly my mind changed its direction towards a world called the world of genes. As I entered through my thoughts, many questions of curiosity arose in my mind, and one of them was this: what if the head of a woman shows attached to the fan, with her hair hanging down? Right as these thoughts begin to repeat themselves, echoing in my mind, as my eyes are locked on the rotating fan making its rounds at a speed slowly increasing, a light shadow begins to show, slowly forming into the shape of an unknown presence that slowly visualizes itself. The size of the shadow slowly increases as it shapes both the head and body. My breath becomes unsteady, and I begin to pant heavily with my eyes wide open in shock. As soon as I think I should call Mom, my voice disappears. I can't talk nor move freely, as if I were paralyzed and stuck on the bed. I don't dare utter a word, fearing the reaction of the one above me. The shadow becomes more and more visible, and a few drops of tears slowly gather at the edges of my eyes as I look left and right. I feel a heavy presence, and then my eyes stop at the loft again. The sight before me at that moment gives me the shivers. I see a woman in a dusty white dress, her head attached to the core of the fan, which I think had stopped working because I couldn't see it moving. Her long hair hanging down in the darkest shade of black, and all could see properly was her face because that was the only part one was focused on, and I don't know why. As soon as I again tried with my small weak body to move, or at least do something to call for help, the woman rushed onto me, leaving me in cold sweats all over, with my mouth mid-opened, unable to close. She was so close to me that I could feel her cold breath and the touch of her long black hair on my skin. Her hair surrounded me like a spiderweb, making me blind to what was around me. I could only see her hair surrounding me. I was frozen from where I was and tried to recite Daraj Sharif, but couldn't bring myself to, because I was so scared of what might happen to me, what she might do to me the second I would. I tried to recite in my heart, but that was also difficult. I felt as if she could read my every thought and feeling. After a few seconds, I gathered some courage as a tear slid down my cheek. To say Mom in my stammering voice that was incredibly low, she suddenly roughly put her hands on my neck, gripping it in a threatening way, and whispered in her harsh, cold breath, "I will kill you if you tell anyone, and chase you forever, never leave you alone." Everything felt cold, even my tears. In that moment, I felt like I would die. She stayed on me for some time, then, as I began to recite again in my heart with my eyes shut tightly, she slowly disappeared. When opened my eyes again and saw her gone, still in shock, lay paralyzed by shock. As I gathered my consciousness again, I cried and screamed out for Mom, and she came running to me and took me out of the bed since I was afraid to move as her words echoed in my soul. Mom brings me out of the room and to one of my relatives who recites some ayats of the Quran as I move restlessly. He blows on me after he is done reciting, and I feel a bit better. I told Mom everything, but after telling I got even more terrified, thinking, I told Mom everything. What will happen now? As the imprinted image of that woman kept reminding me of her words. That one night made me unable to sleep while the others were asleep, because it reminded me of that haunting time. A few more paranormal activities took place after that one, as if she was playing hide and seek with me. like being pulled from the other side of the bed by a mysterious unknown hand. But at that time the thoughts came up before this happened. The sensation of the grip of that hand was like the scrubbing glove, hardly tightly held onto mine, pulling me down with all force. I was doing my best to pull away, but as soon as I escaped that hand, it quickly caught up again, pulling me down. When I looked down, there was another realm. Many hands were walking, and some, as I watched, jumped up to hold me down, but those were deep and dark and had a dark liquidy arm. They all became one and tried forcefully yanking me down with all their might. It became even more difficult this time. This whole time felt very weak, and half of my body was already down, so close to the ground. But then I saw deep darkness coming from under the bed, and as soon as I saw that, it was as if I woke up from hypnosis and finally realized the danger I was in and could finally break free. At that time, my father was sitting next to me, talking to someone, but he didn't know what was happening to me. Maybe it was also something that the gene did. After releasing myself from that harsh grasp, I became speechless. I could still feel the sensation of the grip, and there was also a mark on my wrist which faded soon after, and my hand hurt. Strangely, for some reason, I would not run away, and now when I think about it, why did that curiosity develop in me? Because I was just a 5-year-old little child? Was it that otherworldly presence who awoke such curiosities in me, to clear the way by making me want to experience something so dreading? Years after our leave, I thought, where is she now? That woman with black hair who threatened me. Did she follow me? Today, when I think back on that incident, I understand that whenever something happened, I had already thought about them, the gene, while thinking, what if it happens, and then it did. It proved to me that they know when you think or speak of them, so always be careful with what you do. Some curiosity can also weigh heavy on your life or future, making you pay the price. That's why it is important to listen to our parents. They know more than us and want to protect us from things we may not even be aware of. If I hadn't been so curious that night, perhaps I could have avoided that terrifying experience. Always trust in the wisdom of your parents, for they have seen dangers that we cannot.